Let me tell you something, brother, about the rise and fall of AEW. But for real, this is going to be serious video about my opinion, the rise and fall of All Elite Wrestling. And listen, I'm a fan. I got the shirt, I got the merch, all of that. So, not here to bash All Elite Wrestling, but really, we got to talk about it because it's been on a decline, and it's not good, because it's not good for the whole entire wrestling business. But first and foremost, all of you are probably watching this video, clicked on it, say, who am I? Who is this guy? Who am I to talk about the professional wrestling business and All Elite Wrestling? Let me tell you real quick about my background. Independent pro wrestler for over 10 years, retired in 2011 due to basically injuries, and been trained by the absolute best in this business, Hall of Famers, Dory Funk Jr., Jorge Rivera of the Turin 2000 Project, and AEW's own Jerry Lynn. So quite a broad range of different styles and different psychologies and things that I've learned over the years. So that I've been a booker, promoter, run business behind the scenes, all the stuff. I know the professional wrestling business in and out. So if that's not enough credentials, I'll make a whole nother video for you and send it to you. But other than that, let's talk about the beginning of All Elite Wrestling and the All In pay-per-view. And I've been following wrestling. I fell out of love with wrestling. I stopped watching it, and I was just like, I'm done. I'll keep up with the guys that I know in the business and just kind of see what they're up to and all of that. But I was not watching TV. I was not getting pay-per-views. I was not going to shows or anything like that. I was not, sure as shit, wasn't buying merch or anything. So I saw this Elite Revolution happening, and I was like, this is cool. You know, I know these guys have been wrestling in Japan, a lot of guys on the independents. I'm going to check out this All-In pay-per-view. And that was great. It was such a breath of fresh air. Just the presentation, different people wrestling, getting a chance to shine on a major stage was great. So that set the tone for me. I'm like, all right, I'm all in. I'm all elite. So I got all the pay-per-views after that, which, again, killing it. They did the Cody and Dustin match was brilliantly done. Again, the storylines, the vignettes, all that stuff leading up to that was great. And then the original roster, once they got the dynamite and actually say, hey, we're going to have weekly TV now. Again, great. I think the original roster was, at the time, and again, I get there were people who were under contract or whatever that Tony may have wanted, but you were 100% perfectly fine with that original roster. So, first and foremost, some of the veteran guys that Tony signed. Chris Jericho, perfect, great pick for a veteran guy. You got John Moxley, Dustin Rhodes, Cody Rhodes, Omega, The Elite, Nick and Matt Jackson, Pentagon Jr. and Ray Phoenix. Perfect. I mean, for them to be on a main stage is absolutely great. Pentagon Jr. is just money. Like, I was waiting for him to get his time in the spotlight. Hangman Page, Pac, and Helico. And God, he's, again, killed it in Lucha Underground. Chris Daniels, Chuck Taylor, you got Darby Allin. I mean, what else can you say about Darby Allin? Unknown, and now he's like one of their major players. You had Kazarian on the original roster, Jack Evans, Jimmy Havoc, Joey Janela. They kind of, give out that hardcore brawling element. Jungle Boy, Kip Sabian, MJF, obviously original roster. Sammy Guevara, Scorpio Sky, Sonny Kiss, Trent Beretta, Orange Cassidy. So, and then you got the Dark Order guys, John Silver and Alex Reynolds, those guys. Again, for a men's roster, like, that's perfectly fine. There's not anything wrong with that roster, and you could have lived with that roster for quite a while. Sure, maybe once you got to TV and stuff, you need to fill it out a little bit with some other guys, but that's pretty decent. Now, with the women's roster, I think it was definitely lacking in the beginning. I mean, you had Britt Baker, Sheeta, Nyla Rose, Awesome Kong, too, I think was on the original roster, but I don't think she was around for all that long. Leva Bates, B. Priestley, I think, was there. Again, some of these people were kind of in and out. I don't know if they actually had contracts or not, but again, it started getting flushed out, and of course, the pandemic didn't help with some of the travel and stuff like that, but that is what it is. It's here and done. And again, bringing in some veterans. I mean, Jake the Snake Roberts, perfect. I mean, that guy, I can pick his brain all day about psychology and just when and where and why to do certain moves and stuff in the ring and promos and stuff. Perfect guy. Sting, for anyone else, any other company or promoter or anything that's bringing a veteran like of Sting status or anything, Tony Khan has used Sting perfectly. That is how you use a veteran of Sting status, his ability, and all of that. The types of matches, promos, anything. Like, that's how you use Sting. Christian Cage, bringing him in, killing it. Absolutely killing it with the new stuff he's doing. So some of these big name veteran guys, Hall of Famers that have come in, I think have been slotted perfectly. Some of the other guys, I don't know, I'm going to get to that a little bit later. Now, being the Elite, you got guys on there, the Dark Order, really got over on being the Elite, and then you had, of course, the Elite on there as well. The one thing I had about that, and I had been watching it anyways, so I didn't notice it until I started missing some stuff, and I realized they're carrying some stories and some stuff over to being the Elite on YouTube, and then onto Dynamite and stuff like that. The casual fan's not going to pick that up because they don't even know about being the Elite, so that's just something a little weird. They don't really advertise it or anything like that at all, but, that is what it is. Now, we're getting up there. So at this point, we're talking pay-per-views, Dynamite's rolled out, Rampage's rolled out, and stuff like that. So it's at a high. I'm watching this every week. I'm following everything. It's great. They're bringing in a few guys. Matt Hardy, is coming in. You had, unfortunately, the late great Brody Lee came in. That was a great get. He could definitely have done more. Some of these other guys, I don't think they needed, but I'm going to get to that in a little bit. What I'm talking about, the peak, like the absolute peak AEW for me, when it got up there and then it went down, was Hangman Page's quest for the world title. That is in my opinion, one of the top 3 modern storylines in wrestling history. If you really watch it from the beginning, because him and Jericho was the original match at that pay-per-view for the title, and he lost it, and then he had his whole huge redemption arc with Kenny Omega and the Elite and everybody else. It's just, that's it. When he won the title, that whole pay-per-view, up to that point, that's peak. His title reign wasn't all that great, and then you start bringing in these other guys, and who do they bring in but CM Punk? All these ex-WWE guys, big guys, and at that point, the roster bloat had just started, and then it just got worse and worse, and then, of course, Punk comes in, wins the title from Hangman, and for me, I was never 100% a Punk fan, again, because I wasn't watching, but I knew of him. I know about the pipe bomb. I watched all the stuff. He's just didn't do it for me. I mean, just being perfectly honest. I'm just like, whatever. So, him coming in, I'm like, all right, it's cool. Yeah, he hasn't wrestled for a while. Come back to All Elite, helping out the company or whatever, but I don't know, when you're behind the scenes altercations and stuff is more entertaining than what's actually happening on TV every single week, you've got much, much bigger problems. And that's what ended up starting to happen with All Elite Wrestling. All this stuff started happening backstage. You had all these stuff going on, and no one cared about what was happening on TV anymore. They cared about, what's going on backstage? Who's fighting with who? Who's doing what at what pay-per-view? It's like, God, it just ended up being a mess. And like I said about bringing other guys in, and it's no offense to anybody. I'm not trying to pick apart anybody. I'm just the fact that, just truthfully saying that you became All Elite, you got hired by Tony Khan. I don't think AEW needed Keith Lee. No offense to Keith Lee, but he's just taking another spot off of TV from somebody else. Swerve Strickland grew on me. Originally, when he came in, I was like, again, another guy, sure, he wrestles the style, whatever, and he seems to be over and has a following, but he's grown into that, which is great, but some of these other guys just don't. They're just taking up a roster spot from someone else who could probably be doing a lot more on national television, but with the Swerve and the Keith Lee thing, so many guys have been makeshift tag teams in AEW and have won the titles. This recently, Ricky Starks and Big Bill, again, no offense to you guys, put together tag team, won the titles. When you've got teams like Butcher and the Blade, you've got the Dark Order, you've had 2 sets of tag teams within the Dark Order that could have won those belts, and they didn't. It's crazy to me that stuff like that happens. And again, once you start getting a bigger and bigger roster, that's the stuff that happens, and people just end up getting dropped off. And then you go ahead and you buy a Ring of Honor. Again, fine, cool, keep wrestling alive, give more guys to a spot to wrestle or whatever. The problem was there was no real clear split. It's now like AEW Ring of Honor is literally together, and we've got Ring of Honor belts, we've got Ring of Honor guys. Like, again, the casual fan who's going to tune in to AEW, and the first match is a Ring of Honor match for a Ring of Honor title with a Ring of Honor announcer and ring announcer and all that stuff. It's like, the casual fans can be like, I don't know what's going on, I don't know what this is, and they're going to click off. So, what do we got to do here at AEW? How do we rise again? How do we get out of this hole that's been dug and all this negativity and just kind of get us back up to that peak spot that we were a few years ago? You got to split ROH. You got to split Ring of Honor. You got to get that off of AEW and be like, if you want to see Ring of Honor, you want to see this roster, you want to see these guys, you go here. Wherever that ends up, I don't know, but I honestly think that's what needs to happen. That might help the roster bloat. You really split that roster, be like, okay, you are Ring of Honor, you are AEW. Do a little bit of cross, fine, whatever, but don't make sure you have almost like a hard roster set, like you're ROH, you're AEW. That is what it is. So that may help with the roster bloat. You may also have to just let some guys go. I know you got like 5 hours of television, you got 2 hours of Dynamite, you got an hour of Rampage, and 2 hours of Collision. And you got to make sure you cycle some guys out and stuff like that so everybody gets their time. So you got to look at that and be like, all right, where's my roster at? Do I have enough people? Whatever, to cover all of that. And just got to have stories, man. Like, dream matches is one thing, but that initial pop will only take you so far. When you've had your 10th, 15th dream match, and it's only like June of a year or whatever, and you're just like, all right, cool, why are these guys wrestling? Why is it a dream match? Like, vignettes, promos, something. Explain who these guys are. Like, again, I had absolutely no idea who Danhausen was. Not a clue. And then he appears out from under the ring. I think someone was pulling out a table or whatever, and he's there. Again, casual fan, no idea who he was. Like, at least explain after the fact who he is. Like, again, this goes back to like the 90s or maybe even the 80s, the old school promos of like, all right, this is who this guy is, this is where he's from, this is why he's here. Stuff like that will go a long, long way in helping the casual fan that's going to make you more money by buying tickets and buying the pay-per-views understand your product. And also, something that happens a lot in AEW is what I call throwaway matches. Matches that could be decent or big money matches if promoted correctly, that just get rushed and thrown away on TV, and honestly, everybody forgets they happened like a week or two later. Perfect example was that Jeff Hardy and Darby Allin match that I think happened in some sort of random tournament. I don't even remember what the tournament was for, but I think they met in like the second round or maybe even the first. I forget, because that should have been something promoted heavily. And they could have met before a pay-per-view, but their main one-on-one match for the first time ever should have been a pay-per-view to draw money. Because the story is there. Daredevil, Jeff Hardy, Darby Allin. The story writes itself, essentially, if you really look at it on paper. And it was in a throwaway match. The only thing anybody remembers from that match is that one spot where Darby jumps off the ladder onto the chairs onto Jeff. No one else remembers anything else. And it's hard because, again, I grew up with the ECW style, and again, being a product of Jerry Lynn and just the Toryumon 2000 project. I have all these different psychologies in the way that when I do approach wrestling and the matches and stuff, and I understand the style, and it's fine up to a point, but when you're doing stuff for no reason and there's no selling at all, and you're just getting up after every single move, it loses its luster. It's like the move itself doesn't matter. And it's just like, there were times that I'd watch Rampage and I'd see guys getting pile drived on the apron of the ring within the first 2 minutes of the match, and then they go another 20. It's like, alright, whatever, dude, you guys are fighting for absolutely nothing, and again, I just like a throwaway match. How All Elite Wrestling can separate itself from everybody else is they acknowledge wrestling history, which is great. You can have other guys come on, you can have New Japan guys come on, you can have other guys, you can have other belts. All that stuff is cool. You gotta have your core product, your core guys, and I do like that there's different styles. You can have your hardcore matches, you can have your lucha matches, you can have all of this. I just think a little bit more explaining, because again, the casual fan won't understand the 6-man tag lucha rules. They're like, why aren't those guys tagging in? I think if some of that stuff was explained a little bit more, whether it's Excalibur, the announcers before, or the ring announcer before the match explaining rules, stuff like that. Something simple and quick and be like, hey, you know, maybe you haven't seen Mexican wrestling a lot. This is their rules. This is how they do 6-man tags. Now here's a 6-man tag match with AAA lucha rules, whatever. Quick, easy, done, to the point. And maybe you'll keep those casual fans. The fans will be like, oh, cool, they explained what's happening. Now I'm watching this match, and I totally understand these guys. I'm going to tune in next week to see what happens. That's what you want. You want to engage the casual fan, hold them, and be like, all right, hold them on a cliffhanger. Get them involved. Get them to like somebody on your roster if they're watching for the first time, and give them a reason to come in next week. Again, when I talk about like throwaway matches and stuff like that, it's not sure the match looks cool, and then they'll tune in next week and they'll see the same thing, and they'll just keep seeing the same thing. But they're like, all right, where's the investment? Where's the story? What am I holding on to? And I go to that one of the best stories AEW have told is a Cody Rhodes Dustin Rhodes match in one of the very first pay-per-views. Again, wrote itself, but again, the way those guys did their story, cut their promos, and wrestled the match, told the story during the match. I think there needs to be a lot more of that. And it's not just, that transcends AEW. I think that's a problem in all of professional wrestling right now, just selling story and psychology and why two guys are even in the ring wrestling each other in the first place. I think it's a major problem in professional wrestling right now. But that's neither here or there. Here, we need to talk about what can we do right now to right the ship of AEW to succeed. I think it's just leadership. And again, finding a way to keep those casual fans watching. The hardcore base is always going to be there. And if you only cater to the hardcore base of fans, you're not going to grow. No guy that you bring in is ever going to grow your casual base. You need to grow it from within. You need a homegrown guy like Darby Allin, Hangman Page, somebody like that that's an AEW original. MJF, perfect example. Those are the guys going to bring the casual fans in that those fans are going to watch every single week. Christian Cage, love him. Matt Hardy's, guys like that, Jericho, they have their following. They're only going to bring so much in. You need somebody new, somebody different to bring in these casual fans and hold them. Because without that, Tony, you're not going to hit your 1.5, 2 million viewers that you want on Dynamite or Collision every day. You're not going to get the pay-per-view buys. It's just... no, and even WWE has fallen into this trap. It's almost contentment, like, okay, I have my viewers, I'm cool. And a lot of people will look back at the Attitude Era with rose-colored glasses, but where did those fans come from? They weren't all just hardcore wrestling fans. You would go to work, you would go to school, and people would be talking about, what is Stone Cold Steve Austin going to do next week? Oh, did you see what him and Vince did next week? You had people talking about professional wrestling. We need to get there again. Alright, so thank you to anyone who's still watching this video. Again, I don't hate AEW. I love AEW. I want it to succeed. I love it. I love that there's an alternative. I love those guys. I love what they're doing. There's no one that can sit here and be like, oh, it's perfect and everything's going great. No. Obviously, there's some issues. It's a bumpy road. Got to get them sorted out. And I hope anything that I said here have made sense. And again, I'm not specifically trying to point people out or whatever. I'm just saying my opinion. And, you know, that is what it is. And again, who am I? I'm some dude, you know, have been trained by some of the best in the business. I do know what I'm talking about. But again, you know, take it for what it is. And, yeah, so if you want me to get more involved in talking about professional wrestling and even doing more videos on my time in the professional wrestling business, more than welcome to. Go down in the comments. Let me know that you like what I'm doing. Do the liking, the subscribing, the sharing, leave me a comment, all of that. And I do respond to all of my comments. And yeah, let's we'll keep this going. Keep Blackphoenix Entertainment going. And hell, maybe someday I'll actually do my last retirement match at some point. Step back in the ring and do something. I don't know. But anyways, thanks for rocking with the flock here at Blackphoenix Entertainment. See you guys on the next one.